Good afternoon and welcome to the Division I Wrestling Selection Show. I'm Will Haskin, and man, are we fired up to set the field and matchups for this year's championship. We hit the mat next week in Detroit as Little Caesars Arena plays host to the championship from March 17th through the 19th. Iowa returned to glory last season as a national champion, but the Hawkeyes were just third at the Big Ten meet this past weekend, so we know it'll be a wide open field. Anybody's competition coming up next week in Detroit. Again this year, we are super excited to welcome in our expert here every year on the Selection Show. He is Shane Sparks. Shane, we are going to break down the brackets again this year by weight class. I know you're super excited to see some of the matchups and the pathways these guys have to a title. Last year, we had 6 individual champions cap off undefeated seasons. We've got some real studs in the sport that we expect to see at the top of these brackets today.
It's always exciting, Will. The fans will be back. They had so much energy and excitement to this event. And what I love about this is the stories. Last year, Shane Griffith of Stanford, they were going to shut the program down. He wins a national title. How about guys like Jake Woodley of Oklahoma and Yaya Thomas of Northwestern? These guys were seated mid-20s and found a way to the podium. I love those kind of stories, and we'll have one or two at least. We do every year.
We always do. We also may have some 1-2 matchups that are going to be must-see TV come next week. We're going to unveil all of the athletes competing in the 10 weight classes and showcase their path to a championship. We'll work our way up in weight, which means we start with those competing at the 125-pound class. First, we'll do half of each of the brackets through all of the classes. So here we start at 125, the top seed. And remember, this is a division that's been blown open because Spencer Lee, a 2-time Hodge Trophy winner, 3-time champion this weight class, he's out after knee surgeries earlier this year. So who will take the top spot? Top spot in the seeding is Nick Suriano from Michigan, top ranked in this class all year, and he's coming off a huge win at the Big Ten Championships. He's been dominant, winning that title match in the Big Ten meet by a score of 12-4. Remember, this is the 2019 national champion at 133. He was then at Rutgers, so he's trimmed down for his graduate season and final year to wrestle at 125 for Michigan. Shane, it certainly worked. It feels like an overwhelming favorite, perhaps at this weight class, given what he has done this year. But as you said, anything can happen when we look at the top half of this bracket at 125.
Yeah, Suriano's been fantastic, but it could be chaos in this top half of the bracket at 125 pounds. The number 8 seed, Patrick McKee, great run last year in St. Louis. He was a 15 seed. He lost his second round match. Then he won 6 straight to finish 3rd place. He's very good on top. He's coming off a 3rd place finish at the Big Tens. I'm sure McKee would love to make another run to the podium in Detroit. The 9 seed, Devin Schroeder of Purdue. Like McKee, this Boilermaker very tough on top. Schroeder's a 2-time Big Ten finalist, 2020 All-American. He loved nothing more than to get on that podium in Detroit, his last competition for Tony Ursuline in that Boilermaker singlet. How about a potential quarterfinal, that 4-5 matchup? The 4 seed, Brandon Courtney, national finalist last year. He fell to Iowa's Spencer Lee. Courtney is fresh off his 3rd straight Pac-12 title, helping lead the Sun Devils to their 3rd straight team title. Courtney's only loss this season was to Patrick Laurie of Princeton. That final was 12-6. That 5 seed, Killian Cardinale, Big 12 champion. He's really raised his level. He was 7th a year ago under Tim Flynn. This Mountaineer has just 1 loss. That's a Kyson Tarachino of Iowa State. Other guys, this half of the bracket, 16 seed is Drew Hildebrandt. Last year he was 4th for Central Michigan. Of course, this year in that Nittany Lions singlet. The 24 seed, Sam Latona. This Hokie was 6th last year as the number 2 seed. Malik Heinzelman of Ohio State is a 12. Drake Ayala, a 13 seed for the Hawkeyes. I expect some fireworks in the top half here at 125 pounds.
Well, first page, and we're already calling for fireworks. I like where your head's at already, Shane, as we go to the second half here at 125. So all the way at the bottom, the 2 seed goes to Vito Araujo from Cornell. He just earned his first EIWA individual title, one of the few to have bested Suriano actually in competition over the last couple of years. And while that came a few years ago in the U.S. Senior Nationals, it's a guy who's won national meets, now looks for his first NCAA individual title. If there's no chaos, Shane, it would be an incredible collision course if we get 1 versus 2.
I would love to see it. You look at the rest of this bracket, the number 3 seed, Patrick Laurie of Princeton. I'll tell you what, Will, it is great to have the Ivy League schools back after they were unable to compete last season. Glory is the EIWA runner-up after claiming 2 of those crowns in previous years. 2-time All-American under Chris Ayers. Only loss was in the EIWA finals to Araujo, 19-6. Glory beat Araujo in their dual meet in early February, 11-9. In those 2 matches, These guys have combined to light up the scoreboard with 45 points. These two are a blast to watch. A third meeting in Detroit for a spot in the national final would be a treat for wrestling fans. Eric Barnett is the number 6 seed. He's been really good at Wisconsin. Big Ten runner-up, finished 8th at last year's championships. He's been a hammer for Chris Bono and the Badgers, another guy in the field that can really put the points up in a hurry in that top position. Second round matchup, potentially 7-10. Trevor Mastrogiovanni of Oklahoma State, an NCAA qualifier who won 2 matches at last year's national tournament. He's 18-2 this season for the Cowboys. That 10 seed, another guy from the Big Ten, Michael DiAugustino, Wildcat, a 2020 All-American who lost in the round of 12 last year. DiAugustino, part of a Northwestern team that qualified all 10 guys under Matt Storniolo. A phenomenal job there in that program. Other guys to keep an eye on. Jacob Camacho of NC State. He's a 14 seed. He's a 2-time ACC champion. An opening round matchup. Brody Teske and Noah Certain. That's 15 versus 18. That could be a lot of fun as well.
Yeah, you mentioned Pat Gallardi, even the number 3, trying to become the first Princeton individual champion since 1951. So there's some history that could make place there at 125. All right, let's go up a class. We're going to 133 next. Top 4 seeds from last year's meet are all back, and they're all wrestling well. So that could mean some really good matches coming up later in the quarterfinals, the semifinals. Top seed is Roman Bravo Young from Penn State. He's the reigning champion of this weight class. He went undefeated a season ago, but didn't have the respect of being the top seed in this class last year. That changes this year, fresh off a thrilling Big Ten win with a takedown in the final 30 seconds. That kept the senior perfect on the season in his 17 matches. You have to go back almost 10 years for the last repeat winner at this meet at 133. We had a lot of turnover through the years, but Bravo Young leads the pack here, Shane, as the guy to beat.
Yeah, Roman Bravo Young has been sensational. I think he's one of the best overall wrestlers in the country, regardless of weight class. He's been fantastic for Cale Sanderson and the Nittany Lions. 8-9 matchup, Rayvon Foley of Michigan State. He was 6th at the Big Ten Championships, now a 4-time NCAA qualifier. He was an All-American back in 2019, then down at 125 pounds. Michael Kolioko of Penn, 2020 All-American, 2022 EIWA champion, helped lead the Quakers to their best finish at the conference tournament since 2010. It's been a solid season for head coach Roger Reyna and the Quakers. Possible quarterfinal will be a Big Ten ACC collision. Austin DeSanto of Iowa, 3-time All-American. He was 3rd last year. DeSanto is a point-scoring machine. Incredible pace and tenacity for the Hawkeyes. DeSanto, 10 tech falls this season. He has scored 20 points or more in 28 matches during his career. His only losses this season are to Roman Bravo Young and Dayton Fix. The 4 seed is Corbin Myers of Virginia Tech. He's now a 2-time ACC champion. He was 4th last year, losing to DeSanto in that 3rd-place match. The only blemish all season for this Hokie was a 1.87 loss to Arizona State's Mikal McGee. Also, this half of the bracket, an All-American from Pitt, Mickey Philippi, the 12 seed, and Brock Hudkins of Indiana. Those are a couple guys to keep an eye on here at 133.
All right, the bottom half now of 133. You mentioned McGee from Arizona State, won the Pac-12. He's your 3 seed, biggest improver from the top guys last year. And then at the very bottom, Dayton Fix, the 2 seed in this one. Kind of seems like we could have some destiny for a rematch with Bravo Young again for the title. It was Fix last year who was the top seed in this weight class, and then he was denied a chance at the title. Also undefeated this season, just won his 3rd Big 12 individual title at 133. He's had some notable wins at the national and international level over a busy few years in the sport, but you know that this is a title, Shane, that he has really been laser focused on for almost 365 days since that loss last year.
Yeah, he is so committed, coming off a world silver medal. He has pretty much won everything, but chasing down that NCAA title, I think most would agree a Fix Roman Bravo Young showdown is likely at the weight class. But Mikal McGee, the number 3 seed, as you mentioned, Pac-12 champion. He was 6th on this step in March in St. Louis last year. He's rattled off 13 straight, so he's wrestled really well since that loss to Roman Bravo Young in mid-December. Dylan Ragusin in Michigan, NCAA qualifier last year, won the Cliff Keen Invitational and beat a trio of All-Americans to place 3rd at the Big Ten Championship, so he's wrestling well. McGee scored a 10-0 major decision over Ragusin in early January. Those two could meet. Possibly a Thursday evening matchup, all Big Ten affair. Lucas Burt of Illinois, fourth at the Big Tens. He was fifth at last year's national tournament. Bird had won 19 straight before falling in a hard-fought Big Ten semifinal to Austin DeSanto. Chris Cannon of Northwestern, fifth at the Big Tens, an All-American last season, finishing seventh. Bird is 3-0 versus Cannon combined the last 2 years. But Cannon first, he'd have to get past the number 23 seed, Anthony Madrigal. Those guys could get at it, and Madrigal's had some really big wins early in the season. So 133, it'll be interesting to see how that bracket shakes out.
Yeah, really no chance to slip up in any match, including if you're the top guys trying to make it all the way to the end. All right, we slide now over to 141 in the weight class, and maybe another weight class that has that sort of 1-2 potential matchup in the final if things don't go haywire. Nick Lee from Penn State, the reigning champion in this class, gets the top seed this year. Won it last year over Iowa's Jaden Ironman. We expected to see them wrestle this past weekend for the Big Ten title, continuing their great rivalry. But Ironman was a medical scratch, so maybe next week we'll give the fans finally what they want. Lee did get an extra time takedown of Ironman in the regular season to win it. Part of his perfect record. He's a 4-time All-American and looking like the guy to beat again this year.
Yeah, chop wood, carry water. That is the philosophy for Nick Lee. He's as good as it gets, technical in all positions. He's been a staple, as you mentioned, in that Penn State lineup for a long time. They're in State College. 8th seed, Grant Willits of Oregon State, 2-time Pac-12 champion, 2-time conference runner-up, qualified for his 4th national tournament. He could square off against the number 9 seed, Alan Hart of Missouri, in a second-round matchup. Hart coming off a second-place finish at the Big 12 tournament, where he stamped his ticket to the Nationals for the 3rd time in his career. Hart would first, though, have to get past Stevan Micic. Micic for Michigan, an NCAA finalist at 133 back in 2018. Maybe a quarterfinal 4-5 matchup with Real Woods of Stanford. 2-time Pac-12 champion and Southern Scuffle champion. Woods beat Aliras at the Scuffle 5-4. That 5 seed is Northern Colorado's Andrew Aliras. Big 12 champion for Troy Nickerson and 2020 All-American for the Bears. Also was a runner-up at the Cliff Keen and placed 3rd at the Southern Scuffle this season. So that's a lot of good talent right there. Also in the mix, 13 seed Ian Parker of Iowa State. Riders Quinn Kinner, the number 16 seed, and Carter Young of Oklahoma State. He stands in that 25 post.
All right, so that's Nick Lee's path if he's to make it back for another national championship appearance. If he goes to the finals, he'd be facing somebody out of the bottom half of the bracket here at 141. And no surprise, we see Ironman down there at the bottom getting that 2 seed. But really, Shane, it's all about the health of his knee at this point. The 2021 Big Ten champion was undefeated at this stage a year ago, but then it was Nick Lee that ended that run in the NCAA meet. Got him again this year, but for the only loss so far. It's appointment viewing as the 2021 senior national champion makes it back to the final for the final bragging rights match with Lee, but it'll all come down to his health after this past week. And don't sleep on Sebastian Rivera, number 3rd seed, 2nd straight year as the 3 seed in this bracket, Shane. But will we get Ironman and Lee, and what's up with the knee, right?
Man, this weight class is stacked, and with Ironman, as you mentioned, health is a factor. Health is also a factor for Sebastian Rivera. Ironman in his career has been 5th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd. Will this be the year that he caps off his career with that national title and stands atop the podium in Detroit? If he does it, it will not come easy. The number 3 seed, Sebastian Rivera, 4-time All-American. He was 4th last year at 141 after claiming Big Ten titles at 125. To do that, he beat Spencer Lee of Iowa. He also won a Big Ten title at 133. To do that, he beat Penn State's Roman Bravo Young, and he's a bonus points machine. We were hoping to see that matchup, Rivera and Ironman, in a Big Ten semifinal. It didn't happen, as you mentioned. Ironman medically forfeiting out of that match, so maybe we will see it in Detroit. Cole Matthews, the number 6 seed of Pittsburgh, is in the mix. ACC champion for Keith Gavin and the Panthers, now a 3-time tournament qualifier. Matthews is 11-0 since the calendar turned. The Scarlet Knight and the Panther have not wrestled if that happens in that 3-6 matchup. Possible matchup on the bottom half. Clay Carlson of South Dakota State, an All-American for Damian Hahn and the Jackrabbits, last year placing 8th. He's coming off a 3rd-place performance at the Big 12s. And Jacob Berglund, what a great story he is at Minnesota. In his 5th year with the program, he has stuck it out, getting his opportunity this year to be the starter. Berglund took 3rd at the Big Tens in Lincoln. These two have met 3 times this season, all in the first month. And Carlson getting his arm raised each time. So put it in perspective how good this part of the bracket is, Will, at 141 pounds. 4-time All-American, Four-time All-American Chad Redd is the 19th seed. He's got a big matchup with Dresden Simon, the 14th seed of Central Michigan, and Keyshawn Clark, a dangerous 15th seed. That's a possible second-round matchup with Ironman. That's exciting.
So much depth in the sport. It's really incredible when you break down the accolades of these guys that have made it to this point. All right, let's go to 149 pounds, shall we? The top seed there belongs to Cornell's Yanni Diakomahalis. Back and bigger, two-time national champ at 141, was dominant the last time he wrestled on this stage, but with 2020 wiped out and Cornell not competing last season, it's been 3 years since we really saw him in an NCAA meet. Now wrestling at 149, perfect this season. He's won 70 straight matches dating back several years. Oh, he's also a multiple world champion, too, so no surprise he headlines as the 1 seed here at 149.
And he's just such a student of the sport. I am convinced this guy gets better every single day. It's a lifestyle, and with Yanni Diakomahalis, there will always be that big smile on his face. He loves this sport. But it's not going to be an easy road for him. 8-9 possible matchup in the second round. Max Mirren of Iowa. Hawkeye came back to take third at the Big Tens. Mirren fell in the blood round last year after garnering All-American honors the year previous in 2020. Hayden Gefeller of Oklahoma State. He obtained his second Big 12 crown last weekend. Returns to the national championship tournament for the first time since 2019 when he entered as a number 7 seed, but then he went 0-2. He's had a really solid season for the Cowboys. Only 2 losses on the season. One of those is to Max Mirren back in mid-February, 5-2. Neither has wrestled Diakomahalis this season. And then you have the 5-4, Kyle Parko of Arizona State, the 5, the Pac-12 champion, came to ASU after placing 6th at the Nationals last year at Fresno State as a 17 seed. And the 4 seed, Sammy Sasso of Ohio State, 3-time Big Ten finalist, 2-time All-American. He has been a staple in the Buckeyes lineup for Tom Ryan. Sasso was an NCAA finalist last March. Has only 2 losses this season. One to Yanni Diakomahalis in Vegas at the Cliff Keen. That was 6-2. The other to Wisconsin's Austin Gomez in the Big Ten finals, 8-5. These two had an exciting scrap at last year's NCAAs, did Pargo and Sasso. Sasso won it 11-10. Also, guys, to watch for this half of the bracket, Mike Van Brill of Rutgers, the 12 seed, Bo Bartlett of Penn State, the 13, and Iowa State's Jarrett Deegan, the 17 seed.
Yeah, you mentioned Sasso. He was the top seed in this class going into the championship last year. That just shows you how deep this in particular weight class has become, and that's only half of the bracket. To the bottom half, and the 2 seed belonging to Tariq Wilson there at the bottom, undefeated this year for NC State. He's been top 3 at 2 lighter weight classes in his NCAA meet history. Now bumps up to 149 in his final season, an ACC champ again this year, on his way likely to another All-America honor if he wrestles well. He hasn't lost, and while knocking off the top seed in this class would seem like a monumental task, Shane, well, why not, this being Tariq Wilson's year?
Tariq Wilson is one of those guys that just shows up at this tournament. He's funky, he's a little bit long, presents some stylistic challenges to his opponents. Don't sleep on Tariq Wilson, that number 2 seed. Like I said before, he's super exciting. There's a possible matchup, if we get it in the semifinals, with Austin Gomez. That would be fantastic to watch. Gomez is the number 3 seed. He's one of the more impressive stories in all of college wrestling. He has not wrestled the past couple of seasons, had some injuries, basically retired and walked away from the sport. He began his career at Iowa State, then down at 133 pounds. But since coming to Madison, he's been phenomenal. At the Big Ten championships, he beat Ridge Lovett, pinned him in 20 seconds. 3rd fastest fall in Big Ten tournament history. And then he beat Sammy Sasso. Just 2 losses on the season for Gomez. One to Heil of Campbell, the other to Diakomahalis. Austin might have to go through Jonathan Milner of App State, the number 6 seed, 3-time Southern Conference champion who was 8th last March in St. Louis. One of Gomez's losses, as I mentioned, to Josh Heil. Milner has beat Heil twice, both in the SoCon final and in their dual meet. Those both 1-point contests. Speaking of Heil, he's the number 7 seed, 5-time Southern Conference finalist, 3-time champion, 5-time national qualifier now, has been first-team All-American in 2020. He was 2-2 last year at the national tournament. His 2 losses, as I mentioned, to Milner of App State. Talked about Ridge Lovett, the number 10 seed. Super exciting and extremely dangerous. An All-American honorable mention down at 133 in 2020. Big Ten finalist last year. Lovett, those big moves in his toolbox. That'd be a super exciting match. Also, bottom half of this bracket at 149, Yaya Thomas, the number 19 seed, last year a 25 seed who took third. Bryce Andonian, an 11 seed. Jaden Abbott's an All-American last year. He's a 23 seed. So there are plenty of landmines this half of the bracket at 149 pounds to get to the national final.
Yeah, there's no question about that. Compelling matchups early and then potentially late if we have some chalk. All right, let's add some weight to 157 as we near the halfway point of our unveil. Top seed here belongs to Iowa State's David Carr. Last year, a dream season for him in 2021, sweeping all the Big 12 awards, including Wrestler of the Year before he won the national title at this class as the 3 seed. He won't have a chance to upset anybody this time around as he's the top man in the class here in 2022. Dominated the Big 12 meet again this year for his 3rd straight title. He is a freight train running downhill heading to Detroit right now the way that he has been wrestling here, Shane.
That is a great way to put it. He is a freight train running downhill. Again, so much talent. His skill set offensively, he's fantastic. Good in all positions. David Carr, another one of those guys, loves the sport, big smile on his face, and he looks great for Kevin Dresser once again this season. There's a good mat return. He's really solid. You look at his path, that 8-9 matchup potentially with Will Lewan in Michigan. Lewan, a Big Ten runner-up, 2nd-team All-American in 2020. Caleb Young of Iowa, 3-time All-American, 4th at the Big Tens last weekend. Young beat Lewan in a duel in February of 2020, 7-3. Carr perhaps could get either Lewan or Young in his path to the championship. The number 5 seed, Quincy Mundy from Princeton, he won a title at the EIWA championships, comes in with a 12-match winning streak. Very impressive. 2020, he was a 1st-team All-American. He'll look to do damage here at 157. Ed Scott, North Carolina State. Last year at 149, he was 6-6, didn't qualify for the tournament. This year, 24-2, scores a lot of bonus points, champion of the ACC, and he does own a win over Monday. He beat Quincy 6-4. So that's a lot of fun to keep an eye on. Another story here, 2 months ago, Brady Berge was an assistant coach under Damian Hahn at South Dakota State for the Jackrabbits in Brookings, South Dakota. Still had that itch, had something left to give. Brady Berge back to Penn State, 3rd at the Big Tens. He is the 16th seed at 157.
Wish I could just dust off athleticism whenever I needed it, Shane. I mean, a nice thing to have in the toolbox if you wanted to. All right, let's slide down to the bottom half here at 157. And while many eyes will be on top with what David Carr has done this year, the 2 seed belonging to Ryan Deacon from Northwestern, the most motivated wrestler perhaps in this class on that 2 seed line, 3-time Big Ten champion. He was the top seed a year ago in this tournament before being bounced in the semifinals. And Deacon and Carr really haven't wrestled each other recently or often. So what a treat if they were to go and make it 1-2 in the final, trying to become the 11th individual champion in Northwestern history if he comes out of this second half of the bracket.
Yeah, that'd be a fun match to watch if those two can make the final. Ryan Deacon, he picked up his 3rd Big Ten title. The last Wildcat to do that was the great Jake Herbert, who was a national champion late 2000 for Northwestern. Looking at this half of the bracket, the number 3 seed, Ja'Cory Teamer of Arizona State, 2-time All-American, picked up his 3rd Pac-12 crown. Teamer undefeated, 19-0 this season for Zeke Jones and the Sun Devils. He's been very, very impressive. Possible matchup with a 6 seed, Jared Franick of North Dakota State, Big 12 runner-up for the Bison. Franick was an honorable mention All-American in 2020, lost a pair of 1-point matches last year at the NCAAs to Ryan Deacon and to Teamer. 2 of his 3 losses this season are to the returning national champion David Carr. That Teamer win over Franick last year was 3-2 in the blood round. So you got some heat up in that portion of the brackets. Second round matchup, potentially a 7-10 showdown. Josh Humphreys of Lehigh, he's the 7, back in the Mountain Hawks lineup after missing last season due to injury. The 2-time EIWA champion placed 3rd this year at that tournament. Humphreys was also 1st-team All-American in 2020. Peyton Robb, the 10 seed. This guy doesn't give an inch to anybody. Honorable mention All-American in 2020, then down at 157. Rob was at 165 last year, 2-2 at the national tournament. Now he's back down to 157. These two have not wrestled in college. I'd expect a really physical matchup with these two guys. Peyton Robb did give Ryan Deacon a hard-fought battle at the Big Tens. Other wrestlers notable at 157, Austin O'Connor is the 11th seed. He was the national champion last year down at 149 for North Carolina. Kendall Coleman, the 19 seed. Garrett Models, a 27 seed. He had a really nice win over Minnesota's Brayton Lee this year. And Wyatt Sheets, an All-American for Oklahoma State last March. He is the 31 seed.
Wow, there's a lot of depth there and no guaranteed path all the way to the finals. All right, if you're wondering how Shane still has breath, you're not alone. We're going to give him a chance to catch that breath as we're halfway through the bracket. Step aside for 1 minute. We'll get to the bigger boys right when we get back.
There's an energy swelling out beyond the limits of your expectations. A universe where fandom reigns supreme. Once you're in it, it changes you. Instead of one you're one of many. A blissful sea of chaos. Go beyond your limits and enter the NCAA universe. Get your seats today at ncaa.com/tickets.
Welcome back to the 2022 Division I Wrestling Selection Show. That's Shane Sparks. I'm Will Haskett. We have unveiled half of the weight classes to this point, Shane. We've got some incredible matchups already discovered, but we've got half the field still to unveil. So let's dive right back into the bracket and get to our next class. That would be at 165 pounds. This was wide open a year ago. The top two seeds last year didn't even make it to the semifinals. It could be wide open again this year, and a potential great story with the top seed, Evan Wick. There have only been two national champions in the history of Cal Poly's program, but Wick could end up becoming the third. He is the Pac-12 champion. He's been in college longer than almost anybody in the field, transferring in from Wisconsin for his final season and making the NCAA meet for a fourth time. And also, Shane, he's 6'3", really long, a problem for his opponents at this weight class.
Yeah, he's a real problem, and he has found another gear since going to Cal Poly. He's got that length really good with the cradles, and he is suffocating in that top position. Look at his path. The 8th seed, that half of the bracket, Philip Canigliaro of Harvard, Harvard's first EIW champion since 2016. Also was the Mattman Open runner-up this past December. Peyton Hall of West Virginia, the 9 seed. Big 12 and Southern Scuffle runner-up, making his second appearance at the NCAAs. Down below, you have Shane Griffith, the number 5 seed of Stanford. He, of course, had that magical run last year to the national title. And Dean Hamady of Wisconsin, the number 4 seed. What a season for this Badger true freshman. He's fresh off his third-place finish at the Big Ten Championships. Big Ten Freshman of the Year, Hamady 24-2, 20 bonus point victories, both losses to Alex Marinelli. Number 13 seed Julian Ramirez joins that group in the top half.
You know, you mentioned Griffith, who won it all last year as an 8 seed, 5 seed this year, but he hasn't beat Wick all season, including in that Pac-12 meet. All right, we slide to the bottom half here at 165. Keegan O'Toole is going to be your 2 seed from Missouri. 2021 junior world champion, wrestled much better after the college season ended last year with him losing in the quarterfinals of this meet. Rallied to finish 3rd in the wrestlebacks. This year, so much steadier, including a strong run to the Big 12 title with both Olympic red shirts and the pandemic allowing the sport to get a lot older. O'Toole really, Shane, one of the few youngsters with a high seed that we're going to see this entire bracket.
Yeah, he is so exciting to watch. He's a 4-time state champion from Wisconsin, and he's funky. Can wrestle in all positions, great cradles, tough in that top position. Keegan O'Toole, he'll be a force to be reckoned with here at 165. On that top of the half of the bracket as well, you have Alex Marinelli, now a 4-time Big Ten champion, 3-time All-American for Iowa. Kamamina, Michigan, Big Ten runner-up. He was 7th at the national tournament last year. The 7th seed, Carson Hartzlaw of Ohio State, had a really good season for Tom Ryan. 2 of his 3 losses in sudden victory. The other, a 1-point loss. 5-4 defeat to Shane Griffith of Stanford. Hartzlaw has been really solid. The number 7 seed. The number 10 seed, again, shows you the depth of this tournament. Jake Wenzel of Pittsburgh, now a 3-time ACC champion. He was the national runner-up last year. Wenzel and Hartzlaw, they met in a duel in mid-December. The Buckeye getting the better end of it, 4-3 decision. And how about this? Anthony Valencia, an 18 seed. He's a 4-time Pac-12 champion, an All-American last year with an 8th place finish. Valencia, an 18 seed. Pretty incredible.
Yeah, could have a second rounder with Keegan O'Toole. That would be for must watch. Again, this was a bracket that got completely blown up last year, so we could see the same thing again in 165 in 2022. All right, we slide to 174 now. Top seed belongs to Penn State's Carter Starocci. He took out the top 2 seeds a year ago en route to the national title. He hasn't looked back. Got a late pin in his Big Ten showdown to earn the title and stay undefeated this year as he tries to go back-to-back here.
Just so tough to score on, gritty, tough, physical. doesn't give an inch inside that circle. Really good in that top position. He's got the 8 seed, 9 seed potential matchup with O'Malley of Drexel, the Dragons' 3rd EIW champion in program history. Mikey Labriola, the 9 seed. This could happen with Labriola and Storaci. Labriola, 3-time All-American. He was 3rd last March. They wrestled at last year's Big Ten tournament. Storaci beat him 3-1 in sudden victory. That'd be a quarterfinal Friday morning. That'd be fun to watch. Michael Kemmer, the 5 seed, 4-time All-American for the Iowa Hawkeyes. Hayden Heidley, a 5-time ACC finalist and 4-time champion for NC State. These two, Will, met at the Midlands back in late 2016. Kemmer came out on top 9-6. Couple other guys to keep an eye on. Adam Kemp of Cal Poly, the number 16 seed, and Purdue's Garrett Ninehouse, the 25 seed.
I think if we've established anything, it's that this sport is probably at its oldest. I don't know if wrestling has ever been older than it is in 2022 with what's taken place the last couple of years, which means we could have some absolutely incredible showdowns. To the bottom half here at 174, Logan Massa's at the top of that when he fought Storaci hard in the Big Ten meet. And then the number 2 seed is Mekhi Lewis from Virginia Tech, the most outstanding wrestler at this meet back in 2019. He won the national title at 165 and really looked like a threat to do it again last year as a repeat performer, but injuries forced him out after 2 rounds. He's back healthy. He's up a weight class. Lewis is again the ACC Wrestler of the Year, having won the championship by beating the top 2 seeds en route to that title, Shane.
The depth at this weight class is incredible. You have NCAA champions, NCAA finalists. This weight class is littered with accolades. The number 6 seed, Dustin Plott from Oklahoma State. He notched his first Big 12 title. You mentioned Massa, now is a 2-time All-American, Big 10 runner-up. His only 2 losses are to Storaci, the Nittany Lion. You have the number 7 seed, Ethan Smith of Ohio State. 2-time All-American, was 5th last year, then down at 165. He was 3rd at the Big Tens. And Clay Lout, 2020 honorable mention All-American, 2nd at the ACC Championships. Another guy to watch, 14 seed Chris Folka from Cornell. He'll be in the mix.
Yeah, going to be some really good fights there at 174. All right, up 10 pounds. We go to 184 pounds next. The top seed, one of the star stories of this past weekend, Miles Amin from Michigan. Incredible run for the Wolverines to a Big Ten title. The championship here at 184 for him was a huge one, handing Aaron Brooks from Penn State his first loss of the season. He's made deep NCAA runs before at 174 and was the top seed actually at 197 last year before a semifinal loss. So now we ask, is 184 his sweet spot? He's also a product of Detroit Catholic Central High School. He's getting to wrestle for Michigan one final time in downtown Detroit. It's going to be an absolutely electric experience for the number 1 seed here, Shane.
Mr. Wolverine, Miles Amin. He's also bronze, silver medalist at the Olympic Games for San Marino. You look at his potential path of guys he might have to get through. 8 seed Marcus Coleman of Iowa State, now a 4-time national qualifier. Cyclone recently 3rd at the Big 12s for Kevin Dresser in the Cyclones. Zach Bronick of Illinois, what a Big Ten tournament he had, the number 9 seed. He was a 12 seed at the Big Tens, had an impressive weekend after 3rd on the podium. He won 5 matches on the backside. Honorable mention in 2020. He's now a 3-time NCAA qualifier. Bernie Truex at Cal Poly, a 5 seed, Pac-12 runner-up. Claimed that title last year. Truex marched to a 4th place finish as the 12th seed at the Nationals last year. Parker Kekheisen, he's some kind of tough. The number 4 seed picked up his 2nd Big 12 title. The Panthers been phenomenal this season for Doug Schwab, an All-American 3rd at the NCAAs last year. Looking forward to this first round matchup with the 17 seed Jeremiah Kent of Missouri and Dakota Gear of Oklahoma State. Britt Wilson, the 12 seed from Northern Illinois, is the MAC champion. And John Poznansky of Rutgers, he was 4th last year. Scarlet Knight is a 20 seed, but he's got a tough first-round matchup with Kyle Cochran of Maryland.
Nothing guaranteed. We saw it last year. We'll see it again this year. To the second half now here at 184. We mentioned that incredible, dramatic match at 184 in the Big Ten Championship. That likely put Brooks on the 2 line, a wrestler that doesn't lose. He was 15-1 as a true freshman in 2020 before the pandemic shut us down. Didn't lose en route to the national title last year and was undefeated before that tight defeat to Amin of Michigan in the Big Ten meet this past weekend. So, Shane, if 1 and 2 make it to the final in Detroit, the entire wrestling world will be watching.
Oh, fantastic matchup. Once again, these two wrestled twice this year. Both won a match. They were both super close. Some really good scrambles, great athleticism and technique from both these guys. Also in the weight class, the 3 seed Trent Hidley, 2-time ACC champion and 2021 NCAA runner-up. He fell to Brooks. Undefeated season this year for Pat Popolizio and the Wolfpack. Trey Munoz of Oregon State, the number 6 seed, a champion at the Pac-12s and Reno Tournament of Champions. He's 22-3 for Chris Pendleton and the Beavers. Returns to the NCAAs for a second time. The number 7 seed, Ohio State's Caleb Romero, he's up from 174. The Buckeye was an All-American at that weight class in 2020. Romero 4th at the Big Tens. Taylor Venz, the 10 seed from Nebraska, 2-time All-American, coming off a 5th place finish in Lincoln at the Big Tens. A Romero-Venz matchup, that be a rematch of the Cliff Keen final, won by the Buckeyes 7-3. 26 seed, Donnell Washington of Indiana, and a pair of All-Americans in the first round. The number 15 seed, Hunter Boland of Virginia Tech, a 2-time All-American, against Hawkeye Abe Assad, the number 18 seed. That is a first-round match.
Yeah, it's going to be an absolute battle in this one. As we've got 2 weight classes to go, we step up to 197 pounds. This was a chaotic bracket last year, included a 2 seed getting beat in the first round. So can't sleep on anybody. That includes Max Dean, the top overall seed for Penn State, 2-time All-American when he was at Cornell. Hasn't been to an NCAA meet since 2019, but made up for lost time nicely this season en route to a Big Ten title and the top seed. He's been the best in his class all season, routinely backing up that claim. He's a Michigan native as well. So what a great way, Shane, to end his season heading home to try and win that first title.
197 should be one of the more interesting weight classes, I expect, because there's a handful of guys that I'm sure are 100% convinced they're going to be the guys standing atop the podium inside Little Caesars Arena. The 9 seed Cam Caffey, Michigan State, 4-time national qualifier, 2020 All-American, coming off a 6th place finish at the Big Tens. He handed Dean his only loss of the season. Lou Dupre of Binghamton, the number 8 seed, 3-time EIWA title holder, 2-time All-American after an 8th place finish last year down at 184. Nico Bonacorsi of Pitt, he's the 5 seed, 2-time ACC champion, 2-time All-American. Last year made the national final as a 6th seed, fell to AJ Ferrari in that final 4-2. Patrick Bruckey is the 4 seed for Michigan. Keep an eye on Bruckey, 2-time All-American, 3rd place finisher at the Big Tens. Bruckey beat Bonacorsi in a duel in early January 6-3. The Wolverine fell to Dean in sudden victory 6-4. That could be crazy watching those guys mix things up. Jay Aiello and Cordell Nordfleet, an interesting first-round battle. Tanner Sloan, the 12 seed. Jake Woodley of Oklahoma was the 26 seed last year. He placed 6th. The Sooner, he'll race from the 13th post here in 2022.
Yeah, just an incredible rematch potential just on the top half of this. And then when we go to the second half here at 197, you have some incredible stories as well. And it goes all the way to the bottom, the 2 seed being Stephen Buchanan from Wyoming. There's only been one Cowboy that has ever won a national championship, and that was Dick Ballinger in the now discontinued 167-pound weight class. Shane, that took place all the way back in 1960. So Buchanan is a chance to make history for the first time in a couple of generations. He's just gotten better every year in the program. Earned the 8 seed last year, now up to number 2 in his 3rd full year wrestling for Wyoming. Even more impressive was his Big 12 title this year. Very strong weight class in the Big 12 this year at 197. It was his 4th title for a Cowboy in that meet.
It'd be great to see Mark Branch has done a fantastic job as head coach there in Laramie, and Stephen Buchanan's got as good of a chance as anybody, but like everybody, to get to that top of the podium, you got to go through some hammers. Potential guys he might see. 3 seed Eric Schultz, 3-time Big Ten finalist, 2020 All-American. Schultz was 2nd at the Cliff Keen in Vegas, falling to Buchanan in that title match. His only other loss was to Max Dean in that Big Ten final. Jacob Warner of Iowa is the 6th seed. He's a 3-time All-American, 4th at last year's NCAA championships. Warner was 4th at the Big Tens this past weekend. Schultz has beaten that Hawkeye 3 straight times. Rocky Elam, the 7th seed, he was 3rd at the Big 12s. He's a junior world champion from this past summer after taking 5th at the NCAAs. Yangar Bastida of Iowa State, keep an eye on him in that 10th seed. 5th at the Big 12s. Bastida has beaten Elam twice this year. He also has a nice win over the 6th seed, Jacob Warner. Other guys to watch: Rutgers' Greg Bolzak, the 14, Isaac Trumbull of NC State, the 15, and the 23rd seed, Braxton Amos of Wisconsin. that first-round match with him and Bastida could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and remember we said upsets could happen. You have to remind Eric Schultz, he was that 2 seed last year that found a way to get bounced in that first round, and after running second to Dean at the Big Ten meet, he needs more motivated than anybody to make a deep run. All right, we got one more to go. We go to the big boys. The heavyweight class is next. And look, you can say there are favorites, there are top seeds. I don't know if anybody's as much of a favorite in this tournament as our guy Gable Stevenson. Not really sure what else you can add to the resume of the big fella. We typically talk about NCAA championships at this point in time, All-American sort of results. He has all those, of course, but it's hard to ignore that Olympic gold medal as well. He got that in Tokyo last summer, decided to return to the Golden Gophers to become a multiple NCAA champion. He had a goal to do it. He's going to try and do it. He just won his 3rd Big Ten title. He already has a professional wrestling contract waiting for him after the season. What a character, ready to take on all challengers and headlining the heavyweights.
Bonus point victories in all 13 of his wins this season. He's the best heavyweight I've ever seen. I believe he's the greatest college heavyweight of all time. But as we know this, Will, there is not a horse that can't be rode and a cowboy that can't be thrown. You never know. You still got to go and earn it. That's what's great about the sport. Even Gable Stevenson, nothing's going to be given to him, but that will be a monumental task. I think that's fair to say, to beat Gable Stevenson and knock him off that top perch. Guys that are being in the mix, Matt Stencil, the 8th seed from Central Michigan. What a career he's had. 5-time MAC champion, 2-time All-American for head coach Tom Borelli. Lucas Davison of Northwestern, the number 9 seed, 5th in a loaded Big Ten tournament bracket, qualified last year at 197. He was an honorable mention All-American at 197 in 2020. Wyatt Hendrickson, the world has fallen in love with this guy, the number 5 seed from the Air Force Academy. Big 12 champion for head coach Sam Barber and the Falcons. A loss in the round of 12 kept him off the podium last season in St. Louis, but he's exciting. 16 pins this season. The number 4 seed, Greg Kirkley to Penn State, 3rd at the Big Tens, a 7th place podium finish last March in St. Louis. Kirkley suffered a 9-4 loss to Stevenson at last year's NCAAs. That's a potential semifinal matchup on Friday night. All-American Trent Hilger of Wisconsin versus Missouri's Zach Elam. That's a first-round match. The winner would most likely get Stevenson in a second-round match on Thursday night. Tate Orndorff, an All-American, a 13 seed for Ohio State.
All right, so if Stevenson were to get beat, it could be someone on this list. It could be somebody on the second half of the heavyweight bracket, and that includes the number 2 seed, which kind of feels as if it might be the heir apparent to Stevenson's throne at the heavyweight class, that being Colton Schultz. He'd love to ruin Stevenson's title hopes if they could meet in the final. He rallied to a 4th place finish in this bracket a season ago, just captured his 2nd Pac-12 title to build momentum for what he calls himself, the Coal Train, as he likes to go by. This is just a bracket full of nicknames. We got an 11 seed here, Shane, in Gary Traub from Oregon State. He goes by Gas Tank. I just love the heavyweights. I mean, who has more fun than heavyweight wrestlers?
You're exactly right. I'm really impressed, Will, that you do that. Gas Tank Gary Traub, former Buckeye, now wrestling at Oregon State. If Colton Schultz wants to get to the final, he's got his work cut out for him, because this weight class, again, is just littered with hammers and credentials. Guys that have had a lot of success on the biggest stages, not only in college wrestling, but in the world. The number 3 seed, Tony Cassiope of Iowa, 2-time All-American for the Hawkeyes. Big Ten 2nd place finisher. He was 3rd at last year's NCAA championships. Tony's taken off about 20 pounds. He's been fantastic for Tom Brands and the Hawks. The number 6 seed, Jordan Wood of Lehigh, 5-time EIWA champion, 2-time All-American. Cassiope beat Wood this season in mid-December, 3-2. And last year, Cassiope shut out Schultz 5-0 in that 3rd place match at the national tournament. Mason Paris is a 7 seed, 2-time All-American, NCAA runner-up in St. Louis last year. After back-to-back years as the Big Ten runner-up, he was 4th this year at the conference tournaments. And the 10 seed, Nathan Traxler, now Virginia Tech, 2-time conference champion, adding an ACC title to his resume. Traxler was 2nd-team All-American in 2020, then down at 197, wrestling for Stanford. And as you said, Gas Tank Gary, the number 11 seed.
Oh, so much fun. Cannot wait for all of these matches. Cannot wait, Shane, for the path to the national title for all 10 of these weight classes. And you've done your homework. I know you can't wait to go have the first matches start next week. But I'd be remiss if we didn't get out of here at least talking about the team competition when all these wrestlers hit the mat, because this past week at the Big Ten really showed how wide open this race could be. Iowa made that run back to glory last year. Obviously what Penn State has done in the sport recently is big, but Michigan making history really sort of changes how we look at the national championship next week. Is it really as wide open as it seems?
I think Penn State is the favorite because they got those big hammers. 4 number 1 seeds. They got a number 2 seed in Aaron Brooks. They are so good. Penn State's going to be tough to beat, but Iowa, reigning national champions, they're going to show up to fight. You mentioned Michigan, a lot of confidence. And then around the country, Arizona State, the Pac-12 champions, Cornell, EIWA champions, NC State, the job Pat Popolizio's done with the Wolfpack. All those teams will be in the mix to take home trophies.
All right, Shane, take the pulse. You good? You got a couple of days to relax
ready
before
to
you get to Detroit. You ready to go?
Let's do it.
All right, we thank you so much for your time, Shane. Always a blast. We cannot wait to watch you as part of the coverage next week, and we cannot wait to watch the matches either. We get underway next week, Little Caesars Arena in Detroit, Michigan. 3 days of intense competition, March 17th to the 19th. You can catch those across the ESPN family of networks. And as always, check back here to NCAA.com for updated results and news throughout the entire tournament. For Shane Sparks, I'm Will Haskett. Thank you so much for joining us today. Congratulations and best of luck to all the student athletes competing in this year's championship.